Compliments of the season to you too, Shamis.
Thank you and welcome back.
Thank you, thank you.
Shamiz, perhaps before we start, there was quite an echo initially.
The echo was because I had the laptop speaker on and not the speaker in the chamber.
It's much better now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. The chairperson should be here shortly.
Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's already 8:05. I'm sorry about that. I don't know what happened in my watch. But let's continue. I just want to welcome the members and the Department of Human Settlements as we interrogate today the annual report of the department. Without wasting any time, I'm just for the record, I would appreciate if the members can introduce themselves to make sure that we do have a quorum. Over to you, members.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, Minister and members on the platform, colleagues. I'm Derek America. I'm a member of the committee.
Good morning, Andrikus van der Westhuizen, also a member of the Standing Committee.
Morning, Chair. Alternate member Danville Smith.
Mornings, Chair. Mornings, MEC members, everyone present. Pat Maran, alternate member of this committee.
Thank you very much, honorable members. I received.
Also here.
Oh, okay, over to you, sir.
No, I just to indicate that I'm.
Member Lily, try to make sure that always you are on mute. Thank you very much, sir. I just again want to welcome everyone who's present. And I received an apology from Member Heron. And we can continue with the program. I think that's all, Shamis. That's all that we received from the department. And without wasting any time, maybe I'll ask the HOD to introduce the officials that have accompanied her. But before we go on, I just want to indicate to the rules of our hybrid meeting. And the status quo remains. And I think by now it's our norm members that we know the rules of engagement for standing committees. I'm not going to read all the rules because I take it for granted that by now all of us, we have an understanding. Or in hybrid. Over to you, Acting HOD Mayor Pilar. If you can introduce, and is Minister in already?
Yes, Chairperson. Good morning, Chairperson and members. And with all protocols, I'd like Minister to start and then I'll come after him. Thanks.
Yes. Okay. I'm sorry about that. I didn't see Minister. So I usually see his face. So today.
No, thank you very much, Madam Chair. You are excused this time around. Madam Chair, no, thank you very much from our side. Once again, it's an honor to appear before the Standing Committee. With me from the Ministry side, I do have my Head of Ministry, Buyolwetu Njalo. And now I'll hand over to the HOD for the Acting HOD to introduce her team. But I've also got my spokesperson, Marcelina Martin, as well here. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. HOD, Acting.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe I should switch on my camera just briefly. If I may, Chair, just to manage the bandwidth, if you would allow me to switch it off because the internet is unstable where we are, if that's in order. But I just thought for the opening, I'll just switch the camera on. With me in the bedroom, sorry, not in the bedroom, in the boardroom. I haven't had coffee. With me in the boardroom, Chairperson and members, it's a full senior management team. We've got our CFO, Mr. Francois Divet, Mr. Benjamin Bossi, Director Strategic Support, Ms. Pamela, Director Policy, Mr. Wiseman, Director for Affordable Housing, Mr. Stokes, Financial Management, Mr. Baveki from Rental Tribunal, our Communications Director, Mr. Adrianse is also here, Mr. Rob Smith, who manages grants, Mr. Brian Denton, who manages project administration, Director Planning, Chief Director Implementation, Director for Land and Asset Management, as well as the support team from Strategic Support. So we've got a full staff complement with me here, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm trying to see if we do have our sign language interpreter. They're not here. Okay, and they will join the meeting in, I think I calculate in 5 to 10 minutes time. Can I allocate that time? Okay, I don't know. In the meantime, because I saw the message on the side, Acting HOD, should we go on or you feel we have to wait so that we can also cater for an official that needs the sign language? I'll take a cue from you.
I think we can proceed, Chairperson. I'm happy to proceed. Thanks.
Okay, I'll make sure that they do join us in about 5 to 10 minutes. Without any wasting time, I'm going to hand over again to you. HOD, I don't know who's going to do the introductory remarks after the minister. So Minister, if you have any introductory remarks, you can go on, and then after I'll hand over immediately to the HOD, then members who is then that we can take.
No, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I think we lost you there for a millisecond, but it's fine. Madam Chair, indeed, the year 2020 and 2021 was indeed a unique, but also a challenging year. We came through another year of COVID-19, but I think we also saw a massive increase in the number of land invasions. We saw a shift in community dynamics, driven partially by a need, but also massively by those that saw an opportunity to benefit from the COVID-19 regulations. All of this, Madam Chair, obviously had a challenge on a number of our projects, our planned projects. So this has really affected our pipeline and our delivery in terms of outputs, which is what we are here to report on this morning as well, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, we also saw successes under this unique and quite challenging year, and you can see my team and I are ready for a new year again. We are up and about and friendly. But what we have managed to attain and accomplish as a team together with our partners under these challenging circumstances, Madam Chair, we managed to deliver 12,764 housing opportunities, which obviously we can unpack further as we go through the annual report. We continue to deliver title deeds, which is a cornerstone of this provincial government's process of empowerment, because we do believe that ownership is empowerment. We delivered 6,352 title deeds to be exact, different categories or different span widths, pre-1994, post-1994, and up until the recent projects, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, you will also note an improvement in terms of our empowerment opportunities created in terms of for contractors and more so women in construction. As you are aware, the target is 10% as per our annual APP. We managed to attain a target of 14%, so we did take note of your inputs last year, but we've also shown you that we can improve through innovation, I need to add, Madam Chairperson. Madam Chairperson, we also saw in terms of youth representation, which has a target of 4%, we managed to attain 5%, so once again an increase there as well. And through all of this challenging times, we had a target of 800 job opportunities for the specific target set, and we managed to create 937 job opportunities. So, Madam Chair, as much as it was a challenging year, as much as it was a unique year, through innovation, but also through working closer with our partners, we managed to attain, as far as possible, as close to many of our targets. But, Madam Chair, what we've also noted is the impact of local government, the impact of governance instability at local government, which prolonged some of the processes, which more than 60% of processes leading up to implementation for us is vested in local government. And if there's instability in the administration or in council, it does have an impact on our ability to deliver on our projected outputs for a specific financial year, more so in 2020-21. But Madam Chair, we also saw the Western Cape Human Set.
Minister, we have lost you.
Wait for it to get used to the portfolio. Madam Chair, I was left out there a bit. The two things which we did focus on heavily was the delinking of FLISP, Madam Chair, which I think in the new financial year, we will reap the harvest, I do believe, of our lobbying at MINMEC for delinking of FLISP. We saw the next phase, which is ultimately the governance structure at local government being put in place. But we have also seen a contractor being appointed in terms of the Cape Agulhas project, and very soon we will be doing sod turnings. We've done the marketing and so forth, Madam Chair. So all in all, a unique and challenging year, but through innovation and focus with partnerships, given all these challenges, we have still managed to sit and appear here before you today to be proud of our annual report, which we are willing and able and transparent to take questions from your members once we get to that point. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister. Acting HOD.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chairperson. We will be just following on what Minister has presented, just to also remind the members that at the end of the presentation from the department, we will also be presenting the Rental Housing Tribunal report. We would have requested to start with that, but given that Minister has already given his opening remarks on the performance, we will then just continue on that, Chairperson. Just to pick up on what a Minister stated in terms of the challenges that we've experienced, just to quantify that as the department, we had a reduction in our budget of about 331 million due to COVID pandemic, and over and above that, we've had to spend about 330 million protecting our sites from land invasion, and we could only recover 82 million of that from the municipalities whom we had an agreement with in terms of providing security on the sites. That in itself meant that the money that was spent on security is opportunity lost for the department. We presented, Chairperson, we circulated a infographics which just details our performance, and I would then like to take the members of the committee through this infographics, and the detail is of course contained in the report. The first section of the infographics just details our performance in terms of the budget. We received 2.4 billion, and of that 2.4 billion, we managed to spend 2.3 billion, and the variance there is about 40 million, and that equates to about 98%. And the reason why we're not able to spend our 100% grant this financial year, the previous financial year of 2020-2021, is because there were delays on some of the projects that were expected to spend that money, and this related to statutory processes, and as such, we could not spend all of our grant. And of course, that grant was spent to achieve the outcomes outlined in the on the right-hand side, which talks to issues of improving our efficiencies in livable neighborhoods, and of course, access to adequate housing and empowerment opportunities for citizens in the Western Cape, and security of tenure through home ownership. Just to highlight on the activities which link to our expenditure, we managed to improve on our efficiencies insofar as the ICT is concerned. We achieved a target of 6 against what was set in our APP as 4. This is an overachievement, Chairperson and members, because the pandemic necessitated that we changed our way of work. We started working from home, and business had to continue, and we needed to fast track some of the projects that were earmarked to be implemented in the outer years. And of course, another important one is our ability to pay our invoices within 30 days. And to that extent, 98% of all our invoices were paid within that 30-day period. In actual fact, in certain instances, we even managed to pay within a 2-week period. This assists our SMME contractors to make sure that they always have a positive cash flow. And of course, an important aspect of what we do is engagements with municipalities as well as the communities. To that extent, we managed to hold 6 municipal engagements at a regional level. And Chairperson and members, this included a summit which was hosted by both Minister Simmers and Mr. Brodel at Gauteng, where all the municipalities discussed the issues around housing and their challenges. And I can report, Chairperson, that there was a task team that was set up to look at the issues of the challenges, and we agreed with the municipalities that we would continue to implement our hybrid model as the Western Cape. That hybrid model talks to us in certain instances where the municipalities don't have the capacity, stepping in to assist the municipalities, and those municipalities that have capacity then would continue to implement certain aspects. There is an agreement that was reached in that regard. Over and above that, during level 5 and 4, we continued with our ministerial outreach programs with the communities, and it was important for us to have this engagement, and these were led by Minister. It was on the back of a directive that was received from National Department, which emphasized the point that we now need to make sure that we focus on providing the housing opportunity, new houses to the vulnerable groups, and increase the provision of service sites. So that communication, we needed to make sure that it is well understood by our partners who are the municipalities and the communities. So we continued to proceed with those engagement. And of course, around the knowledge management project, this is also linked to us in improving our efficiencies. We had to make sure that we upgrade our systems within that hub just for information sharing. When it comes to livable neighborhoods chairperson, we managed to implement one integrated implementation plan, which was completed. The target of 1 may seem as low. This is a new indicator, and it deals with projects that were initiated in line with that indicator in that particular financial year. But work is underway to make sure that we expand on this. And to that extent, we've also appointed service providers to assist us to make sure that that target is increased. Similarly, when it comes to ensuring alignment with national and provincial priorities, we managed to make sure that 10 new projects were approved in line with the national and provincial priorities. These are the projects that were implemented in that financial year. Given the nature of our work, most of the projects approval happens 2 or 3 years prior to the actual implementation. So the number of 10 only refers to those projects that were dealt with in that particular financial year, but it does not mean that we were only focusing on those 10. Of course, the issue of providing technical support to municipalities is an important aspect of what we do. And to that extent, we manage to provide that support to all the 25 municipalities. We do have monthly engagement as a department with the municipalities where the teams from all the directorates would engage with the municipalities on issues that have to do with human settlements development. But not only that, we also look at what challenges exist and how we could assist them to unblock and unlock those. The research and policy plays an important part of what we do. To that extent, we've delivered 1 research paper and 1 policy guideline, and the details of that work is contained in the report. Just in terms of the deliverables, Minister indicated that notwithstanding the challenges that we've had, we managed to deliver. Yes, we did not meet our targets. When it comes to the units, we only delivered 6,200 against the target of 8,500. And there's a number of reasons that's why we didn't deliver. And this is also indicated in our report, Chairperson and members. But if I can just take some time to highlight what those are, it really relates to, firstly, the issue of a late start on some of the contracts, given the pandemic and the fact that during level 4 and level 5, there was no construction work that was permitted on the sites. And even when the contractors had to they had to make sure that they've got all their COVID protocols in place. That in itself also took time. But even then, we managed to assist the small companies to make sure that they fast-track their compliance issues. But also the issue that's also becoming prominent in terms of the space is that of poor performance of the contractors. These are the contractors primarily who are within the SMME space, your grade 2 to 7 GB. It is concerning to us, given the fact that it is our priority and we've committed to aggressively ensure that we empower them. We have started looking at means and ways to support these contractors and also to understand why do they perform poorly on these projects. But unfortunately, we've had to make sure that we terminate those as it was important for us to manage those contracts properly. And the replacement process then also took time, and that also resulted in the delays. And of course, there were blockages by some beneficiaries who also refused to move. This also includes your non-qualifiers. So that also created a bit of a challenge in terms of us meeting our targets. But what to highlight there, Chairperson and members, is that we've continued even in the financial year for the period under review, which is the 2020-21, to spend 67% of our grant to SMME, towards SMME contractors. And this is against the target of 50%. And year on year, Chairperson, as a department, we've always exceeded that target of 50%. If I just look over the 5-year period, that equates to about 5.6 billion that we have spent on SMME contractors. And of course, we also are supporting the designated groups, those being your women and youth contractors to that extent. For the very first time, we managed to exceed the target, which was set for women at 10%. We managed to achieve 14%, and for youth 4%. We managed to achieve 5%, and we do agree that those targets seem rather low. You'd recall, members and Chairperson, that we started off at 30%, but year on year we'll continue not to deliver on this. It's not to say we're not working towards increasing this, but I think based on the feedback that we received from the members, that it was important for us to just review our target and make sure it's aligned on to the baseline in terms of what we were able to deliver. I can confirm, Chairperson, that even with the recent framework of contractors that we've launched, we've seen a huge appetite of the contractors within that grouping, and we're hoping that we could allow us to open up a pool for more of the contractors within the designated groups to participate. And in terms of jobs, 937 jobs were facilitated against a target of 800. And on the training of young people, we underachieved, and the reason was that we could not have contact sessions with the learners. As we presented to the standing committee, I think it was at our Q3 and Q4, that we intend to increase the numbers in this current financial year. And I can confirm, Chairperson, that indeed we are looking at exceeding that. But we've also looked at reskilling some of the people that have lost their jobs during COVID. So we'll be presenting some of our interventions in this current financial year's report. And in terms of the sustainable building technologies, we've managed to achieve a target of 1,035 against 1,000. When it comes to security of tenure, title deeds, we achieved 6,352 against a target of 8,110. And the reason for that, you'd recall, Chairperson and members, that there was a time when the deeds office was closed, and I think at some point the backlog was reported as 250,000. That also impacted our work, and we are looking at means and ways of accelerating that and providing support to the municipalities in that regard as well. And in terms of the pre-94 stock, we managed to exceed our target there by 2, and also for the pre-2014 units, we managed to exceed our targets. We managed to transfer 3,598 title deeds. And the challenge also remains when it comes to the post-2014 title deeds. We managed to transfer 2,642 against the target of 7,000. And the reason, as I've indicated, is that we had a challenge with the deeds office, and the backlog that was created there also had an impact in terms of our delivery. And of course, one other factor is that the non-metro municipalities really seem to be struggling with capacity insofar as conveyancing is concerned. And it's something that we're looking into as a department to try and make sure that we put measures in place to assist them to improve on this all-important initiative. I think I will end there, Chairperson, and we'll be ready to take questions from the members. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, I'm going to open up for the questions. I don't see any hand. Okay, member Andrikas and America, in that order. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to the Minister and the officials for the presentation on your performance in this year. And I think we we need to acknowledge that it was an abnormal year where building contractors have been prevented from being on site due to lockdowns, where many building materials have been experiencing shortages because factories, etc., were closed down. And it does seem to me, in speaking to some of the people in the building contractor world, that when it comes to some imported materials, that they are still struggling to find building materials in sufficient quantities, etc., and that there are huge delays. Chair, there's just a number of questions, but may I first just say, please, on the infographics, I think those figures that appear there when it comes to the amounts are missing 3 zeros every time. So it's not 24,000 Rand, but it's 24 million Rand, for example, which is not shown. And I think it's important that we be accurate when we deal with stuff like that. Also, Chair, if you go to in the annual report, there, for example, to page 15, etc., there are some percentages. For example, I see the page number 15. In the last column, there are percentages under administration, and then it says that the administration has underspent, for example, something like 0.02%, because the percentage line is there now. Just for the officials, because I was actually hoping that it would be corrected, as I pointed this out earlier. You take the difference between the actual and the final. You then, that difference you put above the line, you divide it by the final appropriation, and you divide it by 100. So while the figures there are extremely good, they're not that good. The 0.02 should actually be 2%. The 0.05% should actually be an underspend of 5%. And I'm sorry that whoever compiled this and proved that was didn't pick up on those figures. And the same applies obviously then also to the next page number 16 in the annual report of the department. Now, just to my 4 questions that I would like to pose now. The first one is, unfortunately, it's a reality that some contractors, once they're on site, etc., then you discover that they are not able to deliver, that their cash flow is not good enough, or they don't have the necessary competence or financial backing, or whatever the case might be. And my first question is, what are the plans to cancel such contracts if contractors do not deliver? Do you include strong enough clauses in the agreement, the construction agreement with those contractors, to be able to relatively easy, and I know it's not, can never be completely easy, to cancel such a contract? And are there processes then to be able to, say, for example, approach the second lowest or the next preferred bidder, and to be able to hand over the project to such a contractor? Or if that person since then has also taken up other jobs, to then pass it on to perhaps the third one on the third ranked contractor on that list when bids closed. The next one is, I do know that the Department of Public Works has indicated in the past that some contractors have been extorted by mafia-like organizations, and that in some cases construction work has come to a complete standstill because these criminals have actually forced contractors to pay protection money or to employ people beyond what the contract says, etc., or they are forced to employ people that those criminals suggest to them. To what extent has this become a problem, and have there been such cases in the Western Cape, and particularly during the year under review? The third one, I want to refer to the backlog of title deed transfers. We do know that we're below target, and we also do know that from other sources that the deeds office, particularly in Cape Town, has been experiencing serious problems during the COVID year and since. My first question is just, where do we stand? I know it's something that the minister has been driving, this thing that title deeds should be transferred as quickly as possible. And I think we're in full support of the minister in this regard. But are we winning that backlog, or are we losing? Is the backlog growing or declining? And then the fourth question and last question, I want to congratulate you on the achievement in terms of the alternative building methods. And I must admit, I had to Google some of those names, such as those building blocks, etc. How have these houses built by these alternative building methods, how have they been accepted by beneficiaries? Because people are used to, certain things. I personally have had experience of a hostel which was built of clay bricks, but some of these clay bricks with holes in them, almost like spaghetti, and where people have been unable to put shelves, etc., onto those walls, because a solid brick just gives you a better anchor than a brick with holes in it. So, to what extent have these been accepted, and to what extent has this set a trend so that we can even expand on using alternative building methods going forward? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Then after Honorable Maran.
Thank you, Chair. Thought you recognized me after Honorable Andrikas.
Yes, Honorable America, I said you first, and then after you, it will be Honorable Maran.
Noted, Chair. Thank you very much. Firstly, Chair, I think that it's a recognition, and my colleague, mentioned it, that it was indeed a very difficult environment in which the department had to operate in the past financial year. And we all know that delivery on the product that the department is primarily responsible for, pardon me, is, span over a number of months and perhaps sometimes over years. So in that context, I think that the department certainly, in my view, has not particularly done badly. In that context, I have just a few questions, and I think the HED has mentioned it in terms of the underperformance with regard to young people trained, the 56 against a target of 50, and the HED mentioned that that under delivery will be sort of compensated for in the new financial year. So I'm pleased to know that the target for the new financial year will be much higher than that, because we are acutely aware of the unemployment amongst our young people. Having said that, Chair, it is reported that there's an overachievement both with regard to women contractors against 14.68% against 10%, and youth contractors 5.34% against 4%. So those figures, sort of represent an overachievement. What I'd like to know with regard to those percentages, what is the monetary value of the contracts that have been sort of appropriated to those two different sectors? For me, it is, it's good that there's increase in percentages, but if it represents 5 million rand, then certainly it is not sort of material and significant. And then thirdly, Chair, the sustainable building technologies that my colleagues sort of alluded to, there's an overachievement. So for me, can we get just a little more clarity in terms of what were those sustainable building technologies that we use, and in and how was it received by the beneficiaries of those sort of products that were delivered in that regard? And then a third or fourth question, Chair, is that we know that new regulations have been sort of put out by the Department of Trade and Industry with regard to localization, new localization requirements, and particularly in relation to cement. Can the department comment on the impact of that localization requirement, and what impact will it have? Honorable Moran, your mic is on. What impact will it have on the cost and the speed of the delivery with regard to the availability of?
Honorable America, I'm sorry, I just hear the voice of Honorable Maran.
So I'm not sure why the honorable members single me out, because I'm sitting in front of my computer and my mic was off the whole time, and I think even others can confirm it. So I'm not sure why the members singled me out that my mic is on.
Okay.
We must sort out these problems.
I apologize. I apologize on his behalf, Honorable Member.
I do apologize, Honorable Moran. I just saw the yellow circle around your sort of picture, and I thought that perhaps the interference is emanating from that source. If I'm wrong, I do apologize. So just to continue where I was, Chair.
Yellow circle is because my hand is up.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Maran, let's go back to the business of the day. I think we've got times to double dose of apology.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Okay, I'll proceed. It's just two further questions I'd like to pose, and that is, there's a significant underspending with regard to the cost of employment. Now, in terms of that cost of employment, and often, departments report on underspending in cost of employment due to vacancies not being filled and the duration it takes to fill a vacancy. So my question in relation to that is that, are there any critical positions that impact on service delivery that had not been filled? And if so, would that represent a different scenario in the new financial year? Or is the cost underspending in cost of employment related possibly to the necessary budget constraints that we need to implement as a result of directives from the National Department? And then lastly, Chair, is that a number of municipalities, applied for accreditation to level 2 sort of status. Department committed itself to assist those municipalities for accreditation. Can the department just comment on that in terms of where are we with that sort of accreditation, and had it been sort of granted, and if not, at what stage will that process be concluded? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable America. Honorable Maran.
Thanks, Chairperson. And again, good morning to everyone. Chair, just for a start, one would like to know the failure by the department to table the report on time, and basically resulted in only discussing it now. Why it was late? Maybe one will get an answer to that. Chair, just a couple of issues. And the target set for your housing opportunities, I think over 8,000, and then the achievements, underachievement, I think it was 6,247. But what I've picked up, Chair, is that out of that total that's been achieved, the 6,000, 285, Chair, were non-credit linked individual subsidies, 285. And then 800 were FLIS, just over 1,000. And one would really like to have an understanding, the rest, the other 5,000, what are they, Chair? If only just over 1,000 were actual houses that's been ended. We would like to understand the other 5,000, what were they, and whether we are serious, Chair, in building houses for our communities. That's the one. The second one, Chair, is the title deeds, Chair. And I hear now that we are blaming the deeds office and also COVID. But we have title deeds, still the title deed issues that dated pre-2014, pre-2014, right? And we are complaining about those now in 2022. So what have we done prior to 2040 and even post 2040? How do you complain, Chair, that it's the deed office when you've set yourselves a target of 1,000 and you've overachieved on that 1,000? You've overachieved. You blame the deeds office, but you set yourself a target of only 8,000. I would have thought, Chair, that when it comes to the pre-2014, the only title deeds that needs to be dealt with was that 1,000. The 1,000 will be the only ones pre-2014. And therefore, Chair, the target is only 1,000. Just to find out, but there's more than just that 1,000, because we have overachieved and the number is 3,598. Chair, and I would like to understand, if we have overachieved, how many more is there that predated 2014? Is it 10,000? Is it 20,000? How many it is? And if that's the case, how do you then set yourselves a target of only 1,000? Are the focus then more on the new ones that dated after 2014, because we have set ourselves a target of 7,000 and we have basically underachieved, instead of dealing with those ones that dated pre-2014? So I think we are unfair towards those, because those people who have not received title dates, still dated pre-2014, could not use that property, their houses, as collateral. Will they die in those houses without receiving title deeds? I would like to understand, Chair, 1,000 is our target, overachieved 3,100. How many more is there that predated 2014, Chair? I would like to have an understanding when it comes to that. And then the last one, Chair, and then the Honourable America have touched on it, the underspending when it comes to CEOs. And we know what will happen at a later stage is that, because it happened over the last couple of years, especially when it comes to compensation of employees, where we basically surrender those monies to other municipalities, to the provincial revenue fund, and I can foresee that this will be the case, Chair. We are complaining about capacity when it comes to municipalities, but it seems the department itself lacks capacity. I mean, for example, and we have spoken about contractors and how the contractors underperform, basically. We've been promised, and the MECs were promised houses for people of Brede Valley or Transex. And at the end of 2020, they were supposed to houses to be hand over in December somewhere. I know I've seen that letter. I think it was between 40 and 50 houses that was supposed to be hand over at the Transex. I was there yesterday, but I was not allowed to go in and you'd see how some of those units look. But I've also been told that the second contractor they've packed up the staff. I know the previous one have packed up, the one that was based in Joburg, packed the staff and they have left. And it seems the same route will be followed, the second one. And last time when we basically questioned Brede Valley about this particular issue, we then, Brede Valley then received a letter from Human Settlements at the provincial level by saying, no, that contract falls directly under the provincial department. And if there's any failures, it's not Brede Valley, but a provincial department. So the department must take full responsibility. It's not a capacity issue at the local level, but it seems at a provincial level. And that needs to be sorted out. We can brag about the housing delivery and how we, but Brede Valley people are, and I can foresee, Chair, that you will have numerous troubles on the R62, the Robertson Road, Chair, if we don't want to deal with that particular issue. Transact is a big problem. The MEC must explain why he have not handed over the 40 or 50 houses in December 2020. It's 2022 now. Over the last couple of years, I'm almost finished. Over the last couple of years, 2-3 years, we have surrendered money. I think the first time, end of 2019, was 82 million rand. Again, last year or the year before was something like 75 million. And I foresee that the allocation for Brede Valley will go back to the province again because of the failure of that particular project. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Member Maran here, Transnet. Staffers or acting HOD. I'll take cue from both of you to give guidance.
No, thank you, Chair. I'll start and then I'll hand over to my acting HOD, and we'll then ultimately ask the relevant official to deal with some of these pertinent questions. Firstly, Chair, I welcome all of the comments. I welcome all of the questions, and I do welcome all of the criticisms, because as a department, we don't do everything right due to the complexity of the partnerships which we deal with. And one of those partnerships are sadly also the contractors which sometimes we appoint and which sometimes the municipality appoints. And I'll kickstart off with Member Maran's example of Transex. And I do fully welcome Member Maran's criticism of that project. I welcome his criticism of why units have not been able to be delivered. And I would love my acting HOD and the team to explain to him why we could not hand over units in December 2020. Because I was present in that meeting where that specific contracted task made a commitment to the beneficiaries. Madam Chair, so I would just like, so that we can have a clarity when we walk out of this meeting, why it was not delivered, so that Member Maran can be fully equipped with the proper information But I do welcome his criticism, Madam Chair. I don't take any pains in what he has asked, because I would love him to get a full explanation and answer so that he can be fully equipped to when he engages those communities who he is confronted by them. Madam Chair, in terms of title leads, and once again, the quantum and which Member Maran asks, how many remain pre-2014? I would love my HOD and the team to answer that. But what I have picked up, Madam Chair, which many municipalities struggle with, is that there are certain units that were built pre-2014 where beneficiaries are not living there anymore. Some of them sold those houses within the 8-year period. Some of them even moved out within that 8-year period. Some of them are renting out those houses, and the municipality has a key role to play to finalize the title deed process. But once the actual beneficiary against whose name the subsidy has been allocated cannot be found, we really, and I do need to applaud a lot of municipalities for going above and beyond, for trying to assist those beneficiaries or trying to trace those beneficiaries, because it is making life difficult to actually finalize your pre-2014 title deeds. And hence, to me as the minister, it's understandable why the target is seemingly so low, because if you go back a number of financial years, you would have picked up that, our actual achievements has varied year on year, dependent on the success of our ability to trace those pre-2014 beneficiaries. Madam Chair, in terms of the Honourable Member America, indeed, localization has had an impact, but more so in terms of the AG's process against all provincial departments, more so our department and Transport and Public Works. And I would just love my HOD to actually expand on that, because what seems good in legislation has a very negative impact in the living reality, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, to Member Andricus, indeed, in terms of cancelling contracts, and I would just love my acting HOD to give you the detail, but we have cancelled contracts for underperformance in the year under review, because some of them even had massive implications in terms of community unrests and poor delivery, which also led to attempted invasions on one specific site. In terms of extortion, Madam Chair, in the year under review, the Standing Committee would be well aware that we actually had to approach the High Court for an interdict for a specific project in the metro, where extortion was seemingly grinding all production to a halt on that specific site, all under the auspices of these community development forums, which is nothing but syndicated criminality, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, that is my feedback to the questions. I will now hand over to my acting HOD. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson and members. I will start with Member van der Westhuizen's questions. Yes, we do have mechanisms when contractors fail to deliver on site, and it is embedded in the contracts, and we follow dispute resolution mechanisms. And in actual fact, as Minister has also confirmed, we have terminated contracts. Unfortunately, you cannot just, in terms of the contract, you cannot just issue a letter to and tomorrow the contractor walks off site. There's a process that we need to follow to see it to its conclusion, and it requires reconciliation in terms of materials on site, and all of that usually takes time. But we have cancelled contracts. We cancelled contract in Bido, for example, and yes, member, we were then able in that particular instance to go to the next contractor using the bids that were submitted when the contract was initially advertised. So we've done that also within the projects where the department is a developer within the city of Cape Town, where we've terminated and we've simply gone to the next one who was in line. Where we're not able to do that because just the cost in terms of the variance was too much, we then used our procurement processes to accelerate and appoint contractors on a limited which is a fast-tracked process. So we do terminate contracts due to non-performance. On your second question around the extortion, it is a risk, and we have been impacted by that. And what's worrying is that they are now coming under the guise of a business forum. And it's emerging as construction cartels, and it's affected some of our site. And we've referred the matter to law enforcement agencies, and we've also sought interdicts against the so-called business forum. And I want to qualify that statement and say that we're not against organized business forum, but when they come guised as a business forum, and yet they are construction cartels just simply wanting to be gatekeepers, then it becomes a problem. It is starting to affect us on a number of our projects, but we're trying to manage that legally. And it also does come at a cost, because from time to time, we also have to enhance our security on site to make sure that the staff, our staff, is protected when they go on site. You also asked a question about the title deeds. I think I'm going to ask Roy Stewart to answer that question, and it's also linked to the question that Member Maran asked in terms of the numbers. And Stewart is just going to take us through that response before I continue with the rest of the questions.
Thank you, Engineer. Just in terms of the 394 backlog, the number that we have is 8,000. What we need to understand is that the HSS system came into effect in 1994, and it tracks the projects, and that it gives us an indication of the backlog in those projects effective 1994 until present. And we get a dump on a quarterly basis, and we track that. The difficulty with the pre-1994, because they come from the previous regime, the municipalities don't have that information within. What we as province did is we had a team that exclusively focused to assist the municipalities in tracking that 1994 backlog. We unfortunately, when it, as indicated by the head of department, that the budget was cut, and we had to let go of 3 of personnel staff members who drove that skill set. We have that skill set. What we have is, and that's how you interpret the figures, as Member Maran has indicated, that there was a huge return on the backlog for the pre-94. Our target is set at 1,000. The problem with it, and as ministers alluded as well, is that is a huge amount of the backlog is beset with contested title deeds. We have difficulty in tracing. In fact, the municipalities have difficulty in tracing the rightful person, that beneficiary that should be in the property. Just as an indication, an example, that last year we acknowledged that we need to extend the greater support to the municipalities, and we selected the municipalities that had a backlog in excess of 1,000, and we had 7, and we drilled down and we had meetings with each of them. George municipality themselves sits with an extensive amount of title deeds in the vault, but they can't deliver it because the person that should be the rightful owner isn't in the property, and they reluctant to hand over the property while the person is sitting somewhere else. So we're still talking to them, and we're conversing on those things. So that's the complexity of the title deeds, and it's not only a problem in the Western Cape, it's a national problem. We have, however, going forward, we did not have the opportunity in the 2020 and 21 year to meet due to the pandemic. Our first meeting with the municipalities was in the last year, March, and we've had a number of engagements with them And we've come to realize now that they do have a shortage of skills in their sphere. The problem that led to it, the title deed restoration grant was structured in such a way that it was very restrictive for they could not buy in capacity. The only capacity that they could buy in was conveyances and town planners. So what we are looking forward to, the title deed restoration grant, as you would be aware of now, has been terminated, and it creates an opportunity for us now to fund to reserve funds for HSD, and from the HSD or the OPSCAP, so that we can have more flexibility. We are looking to appoint a resource team so that we will be able to render the assistance in each municipality so that we can increase the delivery on title deeds. It remains the responsibility of the municipality. Its province has a coordinating role, and we are pushing to extend as much as we can assistance to the municipalities. Just in terms of the title deeds, the deeds office, we have now, as part of the provincial steering committee, we've managed to co-opt a senior member of the deeds office onto that platform. The person that attends it on a quarterly basis and has direct communication now with the municipalities and extends their services. So they've committed that whatever problems the municipalities are experiencing, they are willing to grant assistance in that regard. We are still struggling to get the surveyor in general, but we are hopeful for them to assist in the town planning issues as well. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll then continue. The question asked by the member regarding acceptability of the ABT systems. Yes, when we started off with a project in Delft some 10 years or so ago, there was resistance to the product, and in actual fact, to some extent, we still do see that, but we are seeing a change in that people are starting more and more to accept that, and that's evidenced by the fact that now the people in Delft, they've gone on to extend their houses and investing in those properties. It is going to take some time because the perception is that if it's not brick and mortar, it's actually not good quality. It's something that we also working very hard as part of our housing consumer education to inform the beneficiaries actually that the ABT technologies or the systems that we use are just as good, as equally good compared to your brick and mortar. And just a list of projects we've been implementing one in Greenville, Garden City, within the city of Cape Town. And the houses have been handed over, and the beneficiaries have been living in those houses, and we have not received any complaints. And we've got some in Forest Village, in Fontaine and George, and that information we can also present chairperson and members, just so that the members can have an idea of where these projects are happening. And of course, the project that member Maran referred to, which is Transhex, and in actual fact, the challenges were with some of the systems that was initially introduced, notwithstanding the fact that it had agreement certification, there were problems with the rollout. That tells us that in terms of the development of the product by the suppliers, that there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. And of course, linked to that is the issue of training the local laborers in terms of how to utilize those alternative building technology. But we'll be working with NHBRC and our partners to make sure that more training and awareness is held in that respect. And then member America asked a question about the rand value for women contractors and youth. That 14% equates to 270 million, and the 5% equates to 93 million. And the localization requirement, it is a challenge, and we have been engaging with the National Department as a Western Cape Government and infrastructure departments in this regard, because what it does is that it will place administrative burden on the contractors because it requires them to make sure that they verify, for example, the bag of cement and quantify the cement that they'll be using and provide certification that it does meet the requirement. And failure for them to do that, it means that their bids will be non-responsive. And of course, in terms of the note, instruction note that we received, they can ask for exemption, but that has to be dealt with by DTIC. And we all know that that will have impact in terms of our processes to conclude on procurement. And its actual fact, it's one of the reasons why the tabling or of our annual report was delayed, because we were engaging on these technical matters because they were raised in our audit process, and as such, we could not conclude on them until we found a resolution around some of these issues. We're continuing to engage with them, and we're hoping that there will be some resolution around this particular meeting. We've made a point that we're not against the principle of localization, but it's the implementation and the mechanics around that, which would seem that it would place an added burden on the small contractors, and it would just simply increase the monopoly because the big contractors will be able to go and get the verification certificates. But what about your 3GB or 2GB, whom we also want to empower? So these are some of the cons of that process. So we're engaging them to find a way to make sure that the implementation of it is practical. I think it's the practicality of it that concerns us the most. Then Member Maran, you asked a question about the figures. If you look on page 54 under IRDP, we are indicating there that 4,001 houses were built under the IRDP. In fact, page 53 to start off with, 4,001 were built under the IRDP units, and on the next page, page 54, then the 1,148 were delivered utilizing the PHP program. So that gives you your 5,000, which you indicated that is missing. Your question on the title deeds and the deeds office issue was responded to by Mr. Stewart. And on the Transex issue, I think I want to start off by saying that, yes, as a department, we accept the failure in terms of delivering on that project. And it's not because of a lack of trying to resolve the issues, as I've indicated when I was responding to Member van der Westhuizen's question, that when you manage poor performance in terms of the provisions of the contract, it's not a matter of you writing to them and saying, walk off the site. You need to make sure that you do everything according to what is prescribed in that contract. Otherwise, they may come back and claim for damages from the department, would not be the outcome that we want. But we have managed to deal with the issue. The management contractor now is on site. And I can confirm, Member Maran, the contractor is actually not off-site. They are on-site. And in actual fact, we had a meeting with them yesterday to get project progress. And they've confirmed that they're on track to actually deliver the first phase of 190 units by May of this year. And the reason why we pushed it to May of this year is that we want to make sure that we just hand over everything at once. And it's also linked to the electrification process, Member Maran, because the electrification part of it is being managed by the municipality, and the appointment of the contractor to electrify was concluded in December, and now they're rolling out that electrification process in blocks. And we wouldn't want to hand over the houses that are without electricity, considering that the people have been waiting there for a very, very long time. But the contractor is on site, and we've managed to deal with the issue of the non-performing contractor in terms of the provisions of the contract. Thank you, Chairperson and members. Oh, sorry. And then, sorry, Chairperson, there was a question about why we only tabling our annual report and presenting it now. It was signed off in October last year, and the delay in terms of signing off also relates to some of the issues around the localization aspect, which would have been material if we hadn't dealt with them timely. So we were ready to present end of last year, but we were then informed in terms of the processes that we will be presenting in this financial year. Thank you, Chairperson. The COE issue, Francois is going to respond to. Thanks.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Member Maram, for that question. We underspent by 5.916 million on compensation of employees. As you remember, in our budget for 21-22, we alluded to the shortfall that we've got over the MTF on COE, and it would have been very bad to appoint people that you cannot afford. We are in the process as part of the MTech discussions to get the equitable share allocation to the department on a level that's acceptable, whereby we can fill positions. At this time, our ceiling is 230 million rand, and the current staff is costing us 249 million rand next year. So we need to decrease further. We came down from 477 to 446, and with the current allocations, we can only appoint by 24, 25. We can only appoint about 380, and but it will be dealt with further at SCOPA as well. But that is where we are sitting now. We cannot just appoint people and commit ourselves over the long term. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is the title?
What about
HOD?
Thank member. In terms of the title deeds response, Mr. Stewart reported that our backlog now is currently sitting at 63,000. That includes pre-94, 94 to 2014, as well as post 2014. And there's a number of reasons for this delay. And I just want to highlight that to try and assist the municipalities, we also transferred an amount of 41 million as part of the title deeds restoration program, but it would seem that the municipality are struggling, and I think it's a combination of capacity, but also the issue of contested titles. And we've taken a decision as the department to then appoint professional resource teams to assist the municipalities to try and reduce this backlog. So it's something that we will, going forward, be managing internally, and we've set up systems already to make sure that that's managed internally. And we've also institutionalized the issue of title deeds. Currently, it's straddling over two programs, which is Program 3 and Program 4, but going forward, it's going to sit under Program 4. That would also ensure that it is better managed as we seek to eradicate this backlog. Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, is there any follow-up?
Yes, Chair.
Pardon?
Yes.
Okay. Over to you.
But I've seen, Chair, the MEC's hand was up for quite a while. I'm not sure whether you've lowered his hand. If you maybe can quickly deal with that. Maybe a response.
So, Member Madam, just go on, and after Member Andrikas will come.
Thanks, Chair. And I'm glad for the responses. When it comes to CEOs, we are saying we cannot afford, so we will not appoint, and that's an issue that should be sorted out. Because if we're not going to deal with that issue, it will be there for many years to come. Chair. Just say, before I proceed, because the last person who's spoken about title deeds gave a number that includes both pre and post and I'm not sure whether I've captured it correct, 64,000. But Mr. Roy Stewart, specifically dealing with the issue of pre-94, pre-2014, gave a figure of 8,000. Now, and at that stage, I've accepted that the 8,000 is for, and I've asked the question, what is the total amount that dated pre-2014? And I got the answer of 8,000. That's how I captured. I just wanted to check, Chair, before I proceed, if that's correct.
Member Andrikas?
No, Chair, I want to proceed, but I just wanted to check the 8,000. Is it 8,000 the backlog for pre-2014? Because I've heard Mr. Roy Stewart said 8,000. And then after, if you can give an answer, then I will proceed.
Okay, I thought it will make my life easier that you ask that question and you continue with others.
Yes, Chair. No, let me accept they said 8,000, and 8,000 is the figure. Now, in the year under review that we are discussing now, they have dealt basically with 3,598. It's almost half of 8,000. It's almost half of 8,000. So I would have understand in the reasons given in saying that the problem merely lies with municipalities. And I accept, Chair, and I accept the fact that because I'm seeing on a daily basis on Facebook where people are selling houses, and some of those houses are not even 8 years old, selling those houses. And I know it's a struggle, even if, especially when it comes to pre-2014, that you will struggle to get some of those people. But I would understand, Chair, for me, it would have more make sense if we set our target on 8,000, underperform, then say we could only find 4,000 or 3,000, and then give this explanation. That would have been more acceptable to say, Chair, that we could not find those other reasons and so forth. But we overachieved. The 1,000, Chair, for instance, I would have also accepted that the target we have set 1,000 is because we know that there's problems within municipalities and therefore we cannot sack the information that we have received from municipalities. I would have accepted that, but we have overachieved, meaning that municipalities basically have delivered, because it's because of that that we could have overachieved. They could find those people, 3,598, 2,598, more than 1,000. I would have accepted, Chair, and the department should really consider it and say that we want to deal with all this 8,000, but we know there will be challenges. But it's unacceptable for me, Chair, to set your target so low. You set your target so low, only 1,000, and then you overachieved. Rather set it high, 8,000, because you know there will be problems. Let's rather underachieve, and then we highlighted these particular problems, Chair, that basically made it possible, not possible for us to have those. Chair, we have spoken about this extortion, because we have seen, Chair, a year or two back that a person that have received a contract, a female person received a contract from the city of Cape Town. And we have raised that issue very sharply at that particular point in time about basically criminals and gangsters. And we were basically, I'm almost use the M word, Chair, left, right, and center because of that particular issue. And now here comes the department and say, actually, the ANC, you were right at that point. It seems that we've been captured by criminals. But even so, Chair, we must find a way to move beyond these particular things, sort it out and move beyond particular thing. We cannot allow a situation where the delivery of houses and people benefit from that made impossible because of criminal individuals and so forth, Chair. We have to deal with it. But we have said to you, this thing is wrong. It will come and bite you. There it bites you.
Honorable Maran? Over to you.
I'm finished, Chair.
You are finished, Chair.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Chair, I want to thank Honourable Maran for concentrating on the issue of title deeds. As it is a serious one, and I think the officials have just this morning again reiterated that the longer you wait to transfer a title deed, the more problems you will experience in tracing the beneficiary of that title deed. And that is why I think it's for us as members extremely important that that we concentrate on this issue and that we get clarity on this issue. And my question was a little bit less complicated than that of Honourable Maran, I believe. My question was just: are we winning? Are we able to effectively address the backlog in this regard? In general, you know, can we say that in 3 years from now, 4 years from now, that you know, the backlog would have been addressed? And I quite assume that, you know, there's a category of title deeds that are ready for handover, but that we are unable to trace those people, and that we probably have to deal or probably have to go to Home Affairs to find out if those people are still alive, etc. And that we will probably always experience that some will remain in the safe with us being unable to trace them. But that problem is going to become worse unless we put in a massive effort to trace people and to speed up. And I'm really grateful to have learned about the co-option of members of the deeds office, etc., to assist in this regard. So my question again: are we delivering more title deeds than houses year on year? And to what extent, what is the difference between the two? Because if we build 7,000 houses and we hand over 4,000 title deeds, then we're losing the battle. If we hand over 10,000 title deeds versus 7,000 units completed, then we're winning the battle. And that is for me the most important thing. We cannot live with a situation where we know that we are actually losing the battle. The second thing is just also not on the figure of title deeds, but how can the process be streamlined? How can we ensure that when we hand over the keys to a unit, that, you know, the necessary paperwork is already in place, and that we've got the necessary contact details of such people, etc., so that we don't just concentrate on handing over the keys, but that we already can say we are halfway with the registering of that property into that beneficiary's name. All the paperwork has been completed, etc. It's now just the normal delay that you normally experience with the deeds office of 4 weeks or whatever, and then the title deed will be available. Surely we must help the municipalities to develop best practice. What is the best practice in that regard? And then lastly, Chair, we know that this has been an exceptional year. We know, and we accept as a committee, it seems, that, you know, there would have been some underperformance due to COVID. The question is just, you know, have we been able to turn that around? When we sit, hopefully by the end of this year, to look at this financial year's annual report, would we be able to see that the underperformance in some areas have been addressed effectively, or must we expect another year of underperformance because of circumstances beyond the control of this department? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Andrikas. I think from my side, adding to
You on mute, Chairperson? Thanks.
And I am not on mute. I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Coming and going.
Okay. So I was saying that I saw on the book the reasons for the title deeds, and I wondered why on the reasons you didn't put an example of the issue of the transfer of the land parcel where you have implemented the housing projects, like example, your Roy Dake in Diewaterskloof, and the total numbers that are there. So is that the only case of Diewaterskloof, or there is the same scenarios in other municipalities that the delay is not the issue of the COVID or the title deed office? It is the issue of the transfer of the land parcels to the municipalities in order for them to can be able to transfer those houses to their beneficiaries for them to get the title deeds. So that is another thing that I want to find out. And maybe if we get the response from the department, we can also maybe minister or the HOD to a certain extent indulge us in the question of, because we know from national that the title deed grant has been cut off. Now the Western Cape, we did the adjustments so that we can also cater for that, because we saw the need within champion the issue of the houses to their dignity to our communities. But the process from there to that, was there a delay in trying to make sure that you have the funds to make sure that there's funds available for the title deeds transfer, or that didn't impact on the departments running for the transfer of the title deeds? That is all from me on the title deeds. Thank you. I'll hand over to Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And once again, thank you for a great second round of questions. And I think I'll ask my acting HOD and the team to come in where I do not cover, because I think the crux of all these questions revolve around ownership, title deed, provision of budget for transfer of title deeds, given that the title deed restoration grant was stopped by the National Department, and how we are seeking to, from a provincial government side, still focus on it, given that it's one of our core fundamentals as a provincial government. Madam Chair, in terms of Member Marin, the contractor appointment, I must say the specific incident he is referring to, there's a difference between a legal registered company who then gets appointed a contract, not the individual who he is specifically referring to, and we've been crystal clear since 2019 on that, versus these illegal community business forums or development forums, which is illegal structures that really seek to extort and block progress on specific sites. So, no, Member Marin, this is not an acknowledgement of what your party has been saying about, because I think you're actually getting the facts totally wrong here, because there's a difference between a legal entity and an illegal community-based structure which seeks to extort. Then in terms, Member Andrikas, and I'll be quite honest in answering your first question, will we be able to address the title deed backlog? In reality, no. Why do I say no? If you look at all the houses built post-2014, as far back as 2019, I actually commissioned a sample test in one of our provincial projects in the city's boundaries, just to test why we are struggling with title deed transfer in certain projects. Remember, we attempt to hand over an X number of units at that specific site in a specific month. And within the first 2 weeks, Madam Chair, not even the first month, we took one specific block as a sample test for me to see what was really happening in reality. Out of the 24 duplex units we handed over, 18 were already rented out. We don't know where those 18 beneficiaries are. And the problem for that site will be when it comes to transfer of title deed. So until such time that, our partner, which is the local government and the ward councillors, start playing their role, informing us timeously of what's happening on these sites, we will always be stuck with units that are registered on one beneficiary's name but is being rented out or even sold, as Member Marin alluded to. So it all comes back to how do we work together to address effectively in invoking the preemptive clause, because we do have certain rights as a department, but it is all dependent on how local government and our municipalities work with us to ensure that we can exercise that right. Similarly, Madam Chair, since 2019, I've been advocating for a need that as a provincial minister in the Western Cape, that even when people rent out these units, I want to have the right to ultimately take back those units and give it to a qualifying beneficiary who actually wants a house, who isn't using that house as an economic tool and moving back into an informal structure, once again defeating the objective of why the low-cost housing program seemingly at the national scale will never be a success, because we are dealing with shifting community dynamics which defeat the objective of why government ultimately wanted to ensure that qualifying beneficiaries get afforded an housing opportunity, because we know the legacy where our country comes from. We know the legacy of people not being able to own property or even a house in this land. Yet the same community they are actually undermining the objective of why this whole program was initiated in 1994. Member Hendrikus, how are we seeking to address this? And I'm focusing now post-2014. There's great examples of where municipalities work with us, where we have seen an acceleration in the transfer of title deeds. One example is in George, your Golden Valley project, Madam Chair, which is a great one for the committee to take note of. Title deeds were handed over on the day the beneficiaries actually moved in. Another one is Oudtshoorn, where the beneficiaries only waited 8 weeks in 2018 before they got their title deeds. Another great example is Overstrand municipality, where we handed over units at the latter part of 2019, and in the first quarter of 2020, title deeds were handed over. Why? In these examples, it's because either they knew who the beneficiaries were ahead of the time. We didn't just build houses and then try to identify beneficiaries. Secondly, the municipal processes of town planning was done effectively. The stand number was linked to a specific plot number. It was linked to a specific municipal account in the name of the beneficiary already. And that, I believe, is the best way to move forward. And for all of the negativity around transects, once we hand over all 190 units by during the course of May, as the acting HUD has indicated, Madam Chair, we already know who they are. The municipality already know exactly what the municipal account numbers will be. And I do believe, having engaged the mayor in 2020 already, that they are actually ready to also, within a very short space of time, after the beneficiaries take occupancy of the units, that they will actually receive title, which is what we want, Madam Chair, because it's one thing to own a house, but if you don't have title to that property, you are still being a beneficiary or still reliant on the state, ultimately, end of the day. Madam Chair, in terms of your questions, pockets of land that are where we've built units that are actually in the custodianship or ownership of another sphere of government. As we all know, the National Department of Transport and Public Works, for the specific area, Roy Duck is still the owner of those lands, for Madam Chair, even though there's been numerous requesting transfer of the land so we can complete the transfer of ownership to the beneficiaries on that land. So I will actually ask my HUD to highlight any other cases that we are aware of across the Western Cape, Madam Chair, because we talk about working properly and collegially with other spheres of government, but when we keep on raising this matter, instead of politicizing it, we really need to acknowledge that certain national departments are failing our people by not transferring the land so that we can actually ensure proper ownership of the opportunity which we have afforded them as the Western Cape government. In terms of the funding for title deeds, I will actually ask through my acting HUD, the CFO, explain to you the funding that we have available and are making available to municipalities. But in effect, Madam Chair, the Western Cape Human Settlements are taking the matter of title deeds and ownership so seriously that we are putting our money where our mouth is. We are committed to really changing our people's life post-1994. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thanks, Chairperson and members. Just on Member van der Westhuizen's question around what are we doing differently given the backlog. Couldn't agree with you more there when you say we definitely need to streamline processes. I think the decision by the department in the first instance to make sure that title deeds are managed within one component as opposed to it straddling two directorates. I think that was a start. And over and above that, after the appointment of our professional resource teams, and we're planning to conclude that process within the first quarter of the new financial year, it would enable us to allocate resources to each region. And as part of the work that they need to do for us, it would be to drill down on all the projects where we deliver, to understand the reasons why the title deeds were not issued. And I think it's a number of it. It's probably, without me preempting it, it will be a number of reasons, from land transfers or ownership that still vests with the National Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, to issues of contested title deeds, to issues of township registrations and so forth. So I would request, Chairperson, through you, that we be given time to put together a plan that would talk to exactly how we will be planning to address and the issue of backlog going forward. It's certainly not going to be eradicated over 1 year or 2 years, but we will then, through you, Chairperson, and if the members agree, that we come back and present a plausible plan to the committee of how we're planning to change things around, insofar as all the categories are pre-94, 94, 2014, as well as post 2014. Minister has covered some aspects around the title deeds as it relates to ownership of by the National Department. According to our knowledge, I think the majority of the projects are within the Tivoli Kloof area. And I mean, I can recall Roy Darkes, Langpark, where the state attorney confirmed that the documents have been signed, but according to my knowledge and as per the last conversation with the municipalities, the paperwork has not been finalized. So we will ensure that we include all of that in the audit process that we're going to do post the finalization of the appointment of the resource team, so that when we present back to the committee, at least it will be a report that covers all the aspects. And I do agree with you, Chairperson, we should have included the issue of the delays of transfers of land parcels, given that some of pre-94 and the 94 to 24 are affected by that lack of transfer of parcels. We've also engaged the HD, the Housing Development Agency, to assist us to unlock that particular issue. And they've written to the National Department of Public Works and Infrastructure to try and unlock and resolve on these issues. So that's another avenue that we've agreed to explore in terms of our implementation protocol with the Housing Development Agency. And they have made some headways to some extent, but as I've indicated, the matter still needs to be finalized in terms of the paperwork. Thanks, Chairperson and members.
Thank you very much. Honorable Member. Indulge all of you with the full weight. That is going to be quick for us to go through the book because most of the questions are already asked. But I'm not going to waste time. Let's commence with I will appreciate if you can start with the tribunal. So if we have the chairperson of the tribunal to give the introductory remarks. And after we'll go straight to the annual report of the tribunal.
Thank you, Chairperson. I thought we were going to deal with the tribunal's report after the department's one, but I'll be glad if we can finish it now. Thank you for the opportunity, Madam Chairperson and members. I won't give a long introduction, just to also reiterate what the Minister and HOD has said about the operations of, I think, every organization in the country and also the world, that this COVID epidemic caused a lot of disruption, and it also affected the tribunal, which meant that for about 3 months we were not operating as per usual. But I think with every problem you get a challenge, and there are some benefits that came from it, and there's a lot of improvement that happened because we have to do things differently. We're actually forced to do things differently. But you will see from our figures, we still operated during that period where we provided advice to people who inquired for our assistance. And when we started in June, we started on a different level, but we did then provide the full range of services that the tribunal offers. What I also just like to say when we go through the report, at the previous session we had with the standing committee, there was a request that we do some improvements to the report. Firstly, we have included now a organogram which also shows more details regarding the members who are on the tribunal and also the department, the staff that form part of the tribunal. So that was something which the committee asked, and we've improved on that. And we also added details regarding the warrants of execution. That was a question which, a requirement which the members also raised. So in the report, you will see that we have provided that information. Thank you very much, and I think we can go through the report and we will respond to the questions that members have. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Esterhuizen. The chairperson has asked that she just be excused for a minute or two. This is Member van der Westhuizen speaking. Mr. Esterhuizen, would you like to go through the report some more, or do you think we should go over to questions?
Member, I think it's very clear if you look at the report that there was definitely a reduction in the number of complaints that we received. And that was actually a bit strange. We thought that we will get quite a large increase because of the disruption and people losing their jobs, not having an income and so on. But strangely, that was not the case. We had a number of some increases in the spoliations, but that was dealt with by the staff and didn't end up in a hearing where the tribunal had to make a ruling. So the staff was very proactive in assisting parties to come to a solution during this lockdown period, but also just after we opened in June. So the figures might be a bit skewed where we have dealt with a lot of inquiries through inquiries and dealing with it without having to lodge a complaint and to come to a hearing as such. There are some of the figures which is a bit alarming, which you will see from the call center where people phone in. In the 2020 financial year, there was about 10,000 calls that came through that call center. In 2021, that is during the COVID period, there's only 1,392, which begs the question why there's such a large reduction, because people don't have to go out and be outside to make inquiries. And we did make an inquiry investigation to the Provincial Help Desk call center to ask them what is the reason and whether other departments experience the same reduction. And their response was that they were on duty and they received all calls, and it's just a matter of people not phoning or inquiring. So that is a bit strange that we didn't get the number of calls that we usually get. Yes, I can also just report on the communicare matters, which was previously also very much a topic in the standing committee and in the press, in the media. We have dealt with at this stage, there's only 4 matters that we still need to deal with. During this period, we have finalized about 616 complaints, and after the financial year, we have dealt with the balance, and currently we only have 4 matters. And we have previously communicated to the Minister and also to the committee that the big delay in finalizing these matters were the community dynamics, and we're still experiencing that, and that's why we still have 4 matters that we need to still deal with. We get requests for postponements and all sorts of other dynamics which we need to deal with. But we have now reached the point where we will finalize all those complaints and issue rulings where it's necessary. Thank you, Chairperson. I think that is where I will stop and ask for the guidance of the Chairperson.
Chair, over to you again for managing the question side.
Thank you very much. Before I take the questions, I just want to indicate it. The human resource management, the part 2, we can't see, we get the luxury of seeing who's who in the tribunal and the department with the pictures. So if the book is like this, it's really making it difficult for the members to can know who's who in the tribunal or in the department. So try to make it better next time so that we can know all of the tribunal. Let me not waste time. And members, I'm just going to present the whole book and you ask question and then you say which page, or if it's the forward, you will say the question is from the forward of the chairperson, or you indicate the page of the whole Rental Housing Tribunal Annual Report 2020 and 2020. And I see, I'm not seeing so far. Oh, Member Andrikas. Over to you, sir. And after it's Member America. Yeah, in that order. Over to you, members.
Thank you, Chairperson. Mr. Esser, and thank you very much for introducing the report to us, but particularly also for the work behind the report. To you and your colleagues, a big thank you. Yes, you have highlighted the fact that the number of phone calls, the number of cases, inquiries, the number of captured cases, they have all decreased, and as you've said, it's actually against the trend that one would normally expect now that people have got financial problems, lots of time at home and so on. And my question is, have you been investigating this? Do you get some feedback from the officials that intimately work with these every year or every day about what they believe would be the cause of this? And do you believe that this is a trend that we can expect to continue, or is this actually the silence before the storm? That's my first question, because really a reduction of almost 40% in cases is just incredible. Then the next one is in terms of your backlog, and I'm referring here to, let me just get the page number. Sorry, I've zoomed. So page number 12, I believe. You define a backlog as cases older than 90 days. Now, I know that traditionally the tribunal has really been struggling to deal with a backlog, and I've just asked a question on the backlog regarding title deed transfers. Now, it's wonderful. Here we do see that the backlog is coming down considerably, no doubt, because of the smaller number of complaints received. But if you define a backlog as a case of 90 days and longer, do we have perhaps an indication of the total number of outstanding issues? Complaints received which have either not been attended to or that has not been resolved. If you could just give us an indication, because quite frankly, whereas 1,900 in terms of a backlog was just fearfully, big. Even 900 cases more older than 90 days seem to me as if it's something that you and your colleagues should still be concerned about. The second issue is the issue of vacancies on the board, and to what extent has your work been negatively influenced by the delays in filling those vacancies? And do you have any recommendations in this regard, should those vacancies have been part of or should it's been a limiting factor in terms of addressing the number of cases? And then lastly, to what extent do you find that these, it seems to me now, online sittings of the tribunal, to what extent does that allowed you to improve productivity of the tribunal, and would we be able to quantify that? Thank you, Chair.
Member America.
Thank you, Chair, and I think my colleague to a certain extent covered some of the questions that I was going to ask. But I noted, Chair, that the tribunal has a complete set of members. Currently, I don't think there are any vacancies. And of course, we know also the quorum requirements for a sitting to be held. So therefore, in the context of that, I would like to echo the concern expressed of my colleague about the backlogs of cases, and certainly some sort of innovative way need to be sort of looked at in terms of how those vacancies are to be addressed. And I think at our last meeting, in fact, our previous annual review, we requested that and we resolved that as part of the report that we need to get a breakdown of the compensation that that's being paid to the various members of the tribunal and the number of hearings that they've sort of participated in and conducted, and this report is not addressing that. And then lastly, the review applications. We know that for indigent parties, it's an expensive exercise to approach the High Court for have a review application that for whatever reason that may be. And we also know that the President, as it is stated in the report, has assented the sort of amendments to Section 17 of the Rental Tribunal Act on the 5th of November 2014, and that is many years ago. And the implementation date has not been announced yet. Is there any reason why does the tribunal, engage with the office of the Attorney General or the presidency as to why the implementation date for the amendments to the review application legislation had not been sort of implemented yet? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Maran.
Thanks, Chairperson. Yeah, Chair, I just got a few issues, especially when it comes to the issue of communique. because we know that, and we have read over Facebook that many tenants complain about the abuse by communicare tenants that basically stays within the facilities. Chair, I would like to check, given the continued struggles, Chair, faced by these tenants, what complaints were dealt with this in the year under review and also in this year, and how the matter has been dealt with? Chair, we also like to understand, Chair, whether the shortages in the tribunal and how they aims to address the issue of the backlog, Chair. And lastly, Chair, I would like to understand from Mr. Eso. I'm not sure whether I pronounce the surname correct. And you have read on Facebook on this particular issue about the matter that's in front of the land claims court, and it has to do with evictions by communique, and also the instruction by the court where they compel the deeds office basically to provide whether communique existing law, but also, Chair, whether they are the legal owners of land and buildings that they claims to own, Chair. And I think it's now a couple of months where basically there's no response in terms of the court, basically, where they issue an instruction to get all this information, Chair. Whether the tribunal have anything to say about that particular issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Member Maran. I just want the cost that is attached to the communication services. It really doesn't make sense to have such an exorbitant amount of 2021 of 839, while 2020 financial year, the amount was lesser than that. So the question is, if you see January, February, March, April, amount is the calls also. If you look at the point of reference on the call center report, you have 1,392 calls, and the amount that is being spent versus of 2019, 2020 is 10,367, but it's still less than the 1,392. Definitely something has gone wrong, and it cannot be the explanation is we are doing investigation of January. Can get an example or not. Synopsis of the answer of saying that it's a challenge we are looking at. Thank you very much. What to you, sir?
Madam Chair, if you hand it to me now.
Over to you, Chairperson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have broken up during your question and your explanation, so I didn't get the full question, but I think that one is for the department to respond to. Maybe you can repeat your question again if they haven't heard exactly what you are referring to. But I can start with Member van der Westhuizen's questions. I will deal with the vacancies and the online sittings, and I will ask the department to respond to the other questions regarding the trend and the backlog and what the number of open cases are. Mr. van der Westhuizen, Member van der Westhuizen's question was how the vacancies affected our operations, and was there a negative effect? Basically, we had 4 members from the 1st of April until the end of June. So it's for the first quarter of the year we had 4 members. And obviously we had an impact. We couldn't we didn't have the alternates and another member to attend to. But we have managed through the year to actually exceed the hearings that were held in previous years. If you look at page number 13, Madam Chairperson, there is under table 6, there is a set out of the general hearings. So during this period, although we didn't have hearings from March until June, we still managed to have 635 hearings for the year. That was because we have increased the number of days on which we have sessions. We previously only had hearings on 3 days, and now during that period we have hearings on 5 days, and also increased the number of hearings that we had per day. We could also have focus on the communique hearings, and we had more of that scheduled per day so that we can get through that as soon as possible and as quickly as possible. So although there was this vacancies, we still managed to, by actually working harder, it means that members had to attend more hearings than normally. We need a quorum of 3, so basically we call on members to be more available for hearings. And through that, we actually increased and exceeded the previous number of hearings. The question about the online sittings, the question was, to what extent does it affect the productivity? I think productivity is not really the question, is more the convenience and the cost savings for parties, because they don't have to travel to the tribunal in cases where they are not close to the tribunal office. So we managed to have people from other towns and from even people abroad to attend hearings, where previously we would have had to wait for them to return to the country, or they had to appoint a lawyer to represent them here. We can now assist them and facilitate it via the online platform. And we have, well, in that sense, our productivity increased because we could have hearings which otherwise would not have happened. We had those hearings now. But I must also add, I think I did mention it previously, that the public, Joe public, does not all have a very good equipment and connectivity. So it is also a challenge for the tribunal to actually accommodate everybody online. We have a lot of disruptions because of poor connections and so forth, but we try to accommodate and assist people. We had, in some cases, just to be innovative, also had people attending through WhatsApp. As long as there's a voice and a face, we dealt with that. Where we couldn't have that through the normal Teams system. We find that the Teams platform is a bit of a challenge for public. I don't know why, but people tend to be more familiar and more clued up with other platforms like Zoom and Google Meet. But Teams seem to be a problem, and they're struggling with that. So all in all, the online sittings was a benefit, and we are dealing with the setbacks or the frustrations where there is bad connectivity. Can I ask the department to respond to Member van der Westhuizen's questions on the trend and the number of open cases, Mr. Adriaanse?
Yes. Go on and ask them.
Thank you, Mr. Estes, and also thank you very much to the members for the questions. I think from Member van der Westhuizen, the trend, as you referred to it as the calm before the storm, the tribunal itself was surprised with the limited complaints which were submitted during the financial year, and we fully expect that we would see a marked increase once the final disaster management regulations are scrapped, that we would see a number of cases coming towards the tribunal. But I also think that what we've done as the tribunal is be proactive in our approach to communities, where we know that many tenants and landlords were in distress. Both Minister Simmers as well as the chairperson, as well as members of staff, had been on the radio during this period, imploring both landlord and tenant to come to an amicable solution, noting that what we experienced in 2020 was unprecedented in terms of the lockdown levels. In terms of the backlog, again, I think, Member van der Westhuizen, you raised this point around the backlog very sharply in these sittings. There have been a number of interventions that have brought us to this point where we have a reduction in the backlog. And I think there is a backlog reduction strategy which the team have put in place. We've worked very closely with the members who have also delegated to the staff in terms of closing particular matters with cases. And then I think I also want to point out to the members here in this particular setting that we currently have 898 cases in backlog. But I do want to say that as of the 31st of January, we brought that down to 421 cases. And I think that as you've explained, Member van der Westhuizen, both the members as well as the staff are acutely aware of the backlog, and hence we are making every effort to get it to a manageable level. I think we've explained this in previous submissions to this committee, that there are reasons which are beyond the control of the tribunal that will have us in a situation of a backlog. And therefore, we are making every effort to get it to manageable proportions. In terms of Member America's questions, we submit that we've not provided the schedule of hearings which members have attended for the financial year and the associated payments. We will provide that to the committee, and we need to just obtain your approval to do that prior to submitting that. The Amendment Act also, which Member America raises, we can report that in the last financial year, the National Department had a countrywide roadshow in terms of public hearings around the Amendment Act. And as much as we've tried from the Western Cape and we provided input to the Amendment Act, the delays are again outside our control. When we last checked with the National Department, it is our understanding that during the new financial year of 2022-2023, within the first quarter of the year, the Amendment Act will be enforced. So from our side, we are working very closely with colleagues at National Department. Member Moran, the cases which we've dealt with in terms of communique, I think it's again well documented that the majority of the cases, and remember we started with 775 cases, the majority of the cases was exorbitant increase in rental. And I think that when you take into account that if we had dealt with each case on its own, it would have taken the tribunal 3 years to finalize all those matters. So where we've come from, 775, the bulk of them relate to the exorbitant increase in rental. I think we've dealt with the issue around the backlog, which I also explained. Chairperson, I think I've covered the questions which were posed to the administration.
Chairperson, can I respond to the last one? I just want to add to the Amendment Act And then also the question from Member Moran regarding the eviction by communicare tenants. Firstly, the delay for the Act, although it was already passed, the delay why it's not being brought into effect is the regulations. So the National Department of Human Settlements is still busy drafting and finalizing those regulations. They had community participation workshops, but after that the regulations were drastically changed, and we actually requested them to have another round because it's very different from what it was previously. And from our point of view, it's quite onerous, and it's actually negative. It's going to negatively affect tenants or parties to actually use the tribunal, because there's such a lot of rules that they now build in, and that actually just gives rise to more issues from the respondents to raise procedural problems and so on. So they have agreed that they will now go on another drive, and we hope that this draft that they're going to bring out now is much more user-friendly, that actually assist and not hamper the process. Regarding communicare, the question regarding the eviction and the problems, rather the questions that the tenants have regarding ownership, I just want to also inform the members that that was one of the reasons why there was such a delay in some of the matters that that the tenants brought to the tribunal, because many of the issues that they wanted us to deal with actually falls outside of the jurisdiction, the mandate of the tribunal. And that is questions regarding status, whether communicare is actually the rightful owner or the rightful respondent in these matters. And they also questioned whether the social housing program should be applicable, and many of their arguments are centered around that. So many of the issues that they raised at the tribunal were actually not relevant for us to deal with, and we have advised them, but it seems that the tribunal is a very convenient vehicle to raise these issues. And I'm actually glad that they are the right forum at the land court, the land affairs court,
Land claims court.
is actually in a land claims court, which is actually in a better position. We have assisted the complainants as far as we can regarding the social housing issues. We've actually referred the matter to SHRA, and they have given an input to the complainants regarding the position of the social housing program. And that cleared up that matter, but it didn't prevent those arguments from still being raised at tribunal hearings. So as Mr. Adriansa has said, the complaint was about exorbitant increase in rental, but they brought the issues of ownership and these other related issues to the tribunal, which actually is not the correct forum. Thank you very much, Chairperson. That's all from me on the questions.
Thank you very much. I think the last one that came from me that you couldn't hear, maybe the department will respond to it, was the issue of the costs that from your forward, it was just a short response to saying that is a challenge. So I will try, maybe if the department can try to respond to that, to find out why such exorbitant amount while the costs were lesser, if I can use that as a sample checking of the cost of the communication services. Because 2018, 2019, 2020, the amount is lesser than the the cost of 2020, 2021, even though the call center was not that busy with 1,392. Is there any maybe cost that is attached to it that it might be the reason why that amount is just inflated so high? I'll get direction from the department or from you, Chairperson, who's going to respond to that.
Chair, I'll respond to the question.
Go on, sir.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, when you look at the expenditure table on page 9, you're absolutely correct. You see communication services increased from 19,000 to 26,839 rand. Now, during the lockdown period, we were able to provide advice to citizens who were in distress. And what we did was on our website, we posted numbers of staff members who were available to take calls from citizens. So that definitely from that perspective, we increased on communication services. And then also the reduction in the number of calls received during the financial year, again, relates to how we as the tribunal were proactive in our communication to citizens. So from that perspective, we accept that there's an increase in communication services. We can also say that from a call center perspective, whilst we've seen a reduction in calls for the financial year 2020-2021, for 2021-22, we are almost back to the levels we saw in 2018-19. So we are seeing things balancing out and coming back to what we would refer to as normal in terms of calls. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Member America, is that a legacy hand or you got a follow-up?
No, it's a new hand. Thank you, Chair. No, Chair, I'd like to thank the responses to my questions, but perhaps to contextualize the report for us for oversight purposes more fully, and perhaps in the next reporting cycle or whatever, is to have a classification in tabular form of the kinds of disputes before the tribunal that they're dealing with, and also perhaps also in terms of outstanding matters, also carrying those classification over to outstanding matters, so that we could also then be able to observe the trends and where some matters may take longer than others, just for oversight purposes and for nothing else, so that we could get a sense of the type of disputes that they're dealing with. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any response to the remarks of Member America?
Thank you very much. Just again, in terms of the classification, we will include that in the next reporting cycle. But I do want to refer the members to page 3 of the annual report. We give a breakdown of the five cases that we deal with, and that is the failure to refund deposit. We saw 29% of our cases related to the failure to refund deposits. Unlawful notice to vacate, we saw 27% of our cases. Failure to pay rental, 14%. Failure to provide municipal services, 9%. And failure to do maintenance, 7%. And unlawful evictions, 6%. So we do provide a summary, but I take the point of Member America that we can expand upon that, and we will do that in the next annual report cycle.
Thank you very much.
Chairperson, can I just add, I don't think we have responded to the question of Mr. America regarding the number of the outstanding open cases.
Okay, go on, sir.
I think there was a question of, we know what the backlog is, but what is the total number of cases that's still not finalized? And there is a table in the report on page 12, table number 5, which actually gives us the number of complaints which we received. In 2021, it was 1944. And then the number of cases at the end of the financial year that was unresolved still is 1325. And of the 1325, 898 is older than 3 months, older than 90 days. So that is the indication of how many cases we still have on the books that must still be dealt with. And I understand Member America's question that although we are giving this figures for 2021, he would like us to have it in sequence for a number of years so we can see whether there are trends. And I think that's a good proposal that we will then include that in our reporting as well. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, members. I am going to ask that we take just a little bit break before we start with the main annual report of the department. Is it okay? Is that in order for about 15 minutes so that you can stretch your legs and have a bit of a coffee with you? Is that in order, members?
In order, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
No problem. Thanks.
Is 15 minutes okay, or you want lesser than that?
15 minutes is fine.
15 minutes is fine. Okay. Thank you very much. That means we are going to meet 1:45 because now it's 10:30. Thank you very much. Go for a break.
I wanted to check now whether we're done with the annual report of the.
I didn't hear. I just heard Chair.
Chair, are we done with the annual report of the Rental Housing Tribunal?
Sorry, Chairperson. Usually you stay until we finish. That is why I didn't take the liberty of releasing you. But we are done with the tribunal. much, honorable members and the department officials. We are now going to continue with our program. Honorable members, we are going to proceed. I'm not going to do the page to page. We are going to do the section by section on the analysis of the department's annual report. So the first part, it will be the part A, which is the general information from page 8 to page 30. I present that to you. Any questions from those pages? Members, are you back? Oh, I'm talking alone.
Back Chair.
Back, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I got scared for a minute there that I'm alone. No questions from part A. Part B? I don't see any hand. No questions from part B. Part D? I don't see hands from questions from part D. I'm going to ask CFO, do you have any closing remarks? The department officials with us, honorable members. Sorry.
Thank you, Chairperson. Kamala is acting as chairperson here by us, but I will also just want to say thank you to the members and yourself for all the good questions and just always keeping us on our toes. The small little errors that crept in with the annual report, as highlighted by the members, we will tend to that as well. And we are looking forward to engaging with you again soon, and your leadership is really appreciated. But I'm going to hand to Kamala, that is acting chairperson from our side at this moment in time.
Thank you very much. I know that our Minister said he's going to step out a little bit, and also the acting HOD. I don't think they are back yet, hence I asked you if you can do that on their behalf. I'm going to ask Honorable America, is there anything that you would want to do to say to the department on our behalf?
Thank you, Chair. I think that we receive adequate explanation from the department as to the delay in presenting the annual report, and it is matters that were completely out of their control. And I'm very pleased to hear that the whole sort of vexed question around localization and the explanation as to how it will have a onerous impact on small and medium-term enterprises, particularly those that we are targeting, that is enterprises headed by women and youth. And I think that further engagement with the National Department for the necessary exemptions in that regard would be most welcome, and we will monitor that over the next year. And then lastly, that the department received an unqualified audit report, and wish to perhaps prematurely congratulate the department before engaging on that. But on the whole, thank you, Chair, for your leadership, and for the Minister and the HOD and the senior management. We always had a very frank and open engagement with each other, and we hope that that sort of platform that was raised will continue in the next year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I also echo the sentiment of my colleague, but I did a mistake of not asking if there's any public member. Shunice, did you receive any from the public that demands to Okay. I see there's a hand of Honorable van der Westhuizen, and there's no any oral submission request that was made from the public. So I'm going to hand over to you. Member Andrikas?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I think we have again this morning learned of the challenges experienced by the department, many of which are outside their responsibility, actually. And I think we need to acknowledge that, unfortunately, to investigate criminal actions, to protect property from illegal occupation, to act against extortionists, etc. These are all the responsibility of the South African Police Services, primarily. And I think we need to acknowledge and appreciate that our contractors must now work under very difficult circumstances. We need to acknowledge the support that the department is giving to such contractors, but that eventually it is the beneficiaries that suffer because of this failure of the South African Police Services, in that contractors now need to put up fences, security, they need to guard their building materials closely, etc., because of this this general lawlessness, and that eventually it just either pushes up the costs or it detracts from the final product, in the sense that contractors are now having to take shortcuts to make ends meet and to ensure that these projects can be completed. So from my side, I would just like to say to the department, best of luck. We wish them well. We appreciate the difficult circumstances of this particular financial year, and that the one following on this one was also not a normal year, but we are looking forward to hopefully seeing them meeting their own targets that they've set going forward. And I think the department will also take back the message from this committee that we are highly concerned about, can I call it, not only the construction of houses, but also the legal processes to eventually transfer those houses into the rightful beneficiaries. Thank you very much, Chair, and I can only wish the department well.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Honourable Maran?
Chair, thanks very much giving me this opportunity. And I will concur with the previous speaker. I agree there is some difficulty they experience. Let me not comment on the issue of the police services or safety and security. Let me not comment on that particular issue, but I agree there is some challenges. Chair, I want to give to the department a specific issue that I want them to follow up. It's in Witzenberg. It's an issue that we have raised with the municipality, where an old lady, and it seems not to be the only one, stays on a farm in Brerewe. Our grandchildren is staying with them. We know, for instance, in terms of the ESTA law, when a person who enjoys permanent residence, when that person dies, all those below the age of 60 they will have to vacate the house. And we were glad when people on farms, especially the elderly, receive the houses and therefore basically have security in terms of when they die, that those kids can stay behind in a house that's in the name of that particular person. But this old lady, Chair, her name is Rachel Morkel. She is beyond the age of 60. She has received a house. Now, there's another person, Chair, and I have to name her because she was one of your candidates in the elections of last year. She's working at a clinic in Brerewe. Take the old woman, receive the house, to receive the keys of the house.
Tamara, be careful
Yes.
of the act. So be mindful, say. We can
What
go.
now? What was I do?
I think be careful or be mindful of Poppy Act, and you can continue. I just wanted to highlight it to you before you name and names.
But
here.
she's staying in the old lady's house. She's staying in the old lady's house. She's working for government. Her kids is unhappy. They want their house back. The municipality refused to act. And now you, chairperson, throws the Poppy. I must be careful about the Poppy Act. It's fine. Let me then rather keep quiet on this particular issue.
Remember, you can just get the permission and send the email on that information so that we can deal with it accordingly. I love protecting my members in some of the issues. I know we are all passionate about our communities out there, and where we see things not going correct, we have to take responsibility as public representatives to make sure that we try to fix. But usually it's advisable if we do it the right way so that it can make an impact, that it doesn't prolong the process of now you being accused of bending some of the laws that are really governing us, or any law that is unto us, even though the intention came from a very beautiful or good space, but we still have to make sure that we bind to the rules, regulations, and we follow those.
Is it illegal to say who stays in the house? Is it illegal to say who currently stays in the house?
No, I heard when you were saying that you are going to name. So I was just protecting you.
To name to who stays in the house currently. The old lady's kids want their house back. There's a lady that stays in the house. Is it illegal to mention the name of that lady who stays in the house?
That's all that you wanted to say, Member Maran?
And I want the department to investigate that particular matter. Because we have taken it up with the municipality, they refuse to act. If that lady died, our kids will have no place to stay because someone else is occupying their space. That's the point. That old lady, she only was there one day when she have received the keys. That's it. She was transported by this person to receive the keys and transported back to the house where she stays on the farm. But I will put it in the email.
Thank you very much, Member Maran, and we appreciate your passion about that. We will wait for your email so that we can send it to the department for them to look at, because it's quite concerning, and we really can feel the passion that you have about that issue. So I'm going to hand over to the minister. I think I saw Minister joining us. Minister, we are done with the annual reports. Just the closing remarks from you.
No, thank you very much, Madam Chair. And once again, thank you to you and your standing committee members for truly penetrating and asking very pertinent questions, even before when we started earlier this morning. But I think what one can gather from the year under review is that despite the challenges, through innovative ways, this department has managed to deliver. But ultimately, I think the standing committee members do realize that human settlements and all the nuts and bolts and partnerships that form part of who we are all have an impact on our capacity to deliver. And that is why it's so important that the most important and crucial component, our community, is taken along on this journey with us into the next financial year. Because things will get more harder due to COVID-19, but through innovation, I do believe in the Western Cape, we can accelerate delivery, but all our partners must be on par and must walk this journey with us. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister. I think coming from my side, it will be, we need to acknowledge the issue of the budget cuts that is going to be rough going forward. And that's where we have to say to the department jointly with the members to say how do we become innovative enough to make sure that we still can give those services, we still can give that dignity to our communities, because I mean human settlements is the heartbeat of our communities, and those communities most of the time the huge number is those who are unemployed, the poorest of the poor. So we have to say, how do we go about to react to that? But only innovation can be the one that can help us to do that, because with the funding that the department, the budget that gets to be cut, it's going to be difficult for the department really to cut all the backlog that is there for human settlement. Now, what I think we are going to do moving forward with the standing committee, we are going to go on a vetting the database to find out from the municipalities, minister, of the programs that they are going to put in place, because there is a perception that human settlement is only about the BNGs, the social housing, the fleets and others, there is not there. And only to find if the backlog that we have is talking to the demand, is if we can go there and try to say we do have the systems that the department has put in of registering online, just to make sure that the 600,000 of the backlog is a real backlog of Western Cape. That technology will be the one that can help us to find out if really that backlog is the one that is we can talk about in Western Cape. The issue of the title deeds, I'm passionate about the title deeds, and that the department has to seriously and truly so try to look at it to make sure that we don't sell short our communities in giving them that sense of ownership. We have a challenge of the other cut of the budget, that from your budget that you use for land invasion and the housing invasion, that I don't know how are we going to deal with that. The community dynamics, when you have a project that gets to be delayed, that you have to now reimburse the implementing agents to make sure that they can eventually implement the project that is in the pipeline. So those are the challenges that are the reality. And I think the members have to help with the department to say, how can we go about in the constituencies? So those communication, those engagement of the public reps that we have to do with our communities to understand that, in fact, they are using the money that should have been used for some of the projects to go on. So we need to have that conversation. We need to engage and say, how do we go about to be creative and to be innovative in dealing with all these challenges that are taking money from what's supposed to be used for. But with those few words, I would like to thank the department, the acting HOD minister, my favorite CFO, and the support staff. I know there are others that we don't call their names, and they are the backbone of the department as it runs smoothly as it does. So big up and thank you very much, Minister. We salute you for all the hard work that you are doing with the department under your leadership. I am going to allow you to leave us so that we can try to have the resolutions. Members, Minister, thank you very much, and the department officials, the board members that are still here, and any other officials that have joined us. You are excused. They can excuse themselves. They can log off.
Thanks, Chairperson, and also from the not so favored members. No, thanks, Chairperson.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, we can continue if we can get the resolutions. I haven't heard. Is there any resolution that you? Is the title deeds? Okay, we have two. Is the title deeds and the oversight to the tribunal to sit in when they have a case. Maybe what we can do is to request them, they send us the list of the cases and then we'll choose the one that we know, especially communicate. Those that we know that you'll be interested that we go and we sit in to see how the procedure, how do they go about as they handle the cases there. Is that in order? I see Member America, I see Member Van der Westhuizen and Member Smith in that order.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with you with regard to those resolutions that you have mentioned. But in addition, also a breakdown of the compensation that was provided and the number of hearings that the tribunal members attended. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I remember that. Thank you, Member Van der Westhuizen.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, perhaps if you wouldn't mind just reading to us the resolution on the backlog in terms of title deeds. What I would like to know, and unfortunately I didn't quite get that answer, and there was actually quite an astounding admission from the minister that, you know, he doesn't see us winning this battle, if I can call it a battle. But I would like to see, say, for the last 3 financial years, the number of units completed as a part of the department's budget or initiatives versus the number of transfers of title deeds. If we could just get an indication, if we're losing this battle, can we just get an indication of how far are we losing this battle? Or would we be able to, if we give it a slight push, be able to at least come to terms with this? This is the first one. The second one is, Chair, I'm highly interested in the alternative build or construction methods. And I would very much like to hear from the department the advantages as well as the disadvantages from their perspective on these alternative construction methods. But then also, Chair, if we could in the future during a site visit also go and speak to the beneficiaries themselves. As I've said, you know, some of these alternative building methods, I've read up on it. They are apparently quite good in terms of their insulation properties. But I think in South Africa, normally insulation through walls isn't our biggest challenge. The heat or the cold in a house is mostly coming from the ceiling. So you know, if we could just get the advantages, the disadvantages, things such as the cost comparisons, the ease of construction, but particularly then, how is this perceived by the beneficiaries? Is it being perceived as a better alternative to the traditional bricks and mortar, or do they have specific problems with that? And then, Chair, if I could also ask that we ask of the department to perhaps just inform us of some of the projects where they believe that the illegal occupation of such units have posed particular problems, and particularly where they've had successes, where you know, they have not experienced that. But what has been the difference? What are the reasons why with some developments we do have problems, and in other developments it seemed to be run quite orderly, and it seems as if I don't know if it's is it relationships with the community? Is it community liaising officers doing their work? Is it you know, just the pressure on housing, so that we can hopefully move forward and address this scourge of illegal occupation, whereas the legal beneficiaries now are unable to get access to the houses promised to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think maybe, member, if we can do an oversight on that one, if you can do an oversight to Transhex, and then when we deal with Transhex, because there's been problems there, somehow we include that to hear different challenges that they are happening within their buildings when they in implementation of the projects are happening. Will that be okay with you? Then we'll be shooting two stones with one, because Transhex, it's outstanding. We have to go for an oversight as soon as possible.
Thank you, Chair. I would welcome that.
Okay, and on the other one of the alternate building, I was thinking that we will do a sort of a research of the alternate building that are presently in Western Cape or in the country. We can always invite them to come and do the presentation and tell us about the lifespan and the different methods. And then after then we can compare with what Western Cape is implementing, to if that is the way that now they see is cheaper and they're going to try to go that road.
Thank you, Chair. But particularly if we could eventually speak to the occupants, the beneficiaries of those people, you know, just to hear from them. Do they experience that as quality or not?
Yeah, because why I'm saying this, we went to an oversight. Remember America? Or Shemis, you can remind me. Went to an oversight in, is it Plattenberg Bay municipality, where there is the alternate building. Then part of that, we went to see the alternate building materials that they were happy with. That we will check the report of that and see if it's the same that the department is talking about. I'll ask Shemis to send you the report of that oversight about the alternate building. Will that be okay with you, Ma'am?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Obviously, there seem to be more than one alternate, and I think eventually the province should move towards the most preferred one, the one that's best accepted by the community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Member Smith, and then after Member Maran.
Chairperson, thank you. Mine is just to perhaps get clarity on maybe the way forward for this meeting, and even the way forward when we have specific issues like Member Maran, and I also have a specific issue that I would like to submit through this committee, or to ask the committee to submit to the department for investigation. How do we formulate that in a resolution, or should it just be that one has the open space to bring certain issues here? Just some formulation or guidance in terms of this matter. Understanding you allowed Member Maran earlier to raise his issue to the committee and to the department on this platform. So I just want Chair you to guide me on this thing. Thank you.
Okay, so if there is a specific issue that you raise within the committee, and when we say specific, you know that it's about the issue of Matlodi in Breda Valley. It's advisable if you want the response through the committee, to do it through the chairperson. Shemis will send it, and then we'll have the time-bound response from the department that will need their response by a certain period to come to us. And then we get that response on your behalf, and then it gets to be sent to you. But that communication also will CC you, or if it's Member Maran, we CC Member Maran to see that that communication has gone through, and then the response will come to him. And then if there's any clarity, then he can also communicate and get that clarity. Then he can take that, go to the community or wherever that is going, because that it will be a factual response from the department. That is not a word of mouth or calling each other without having something in black and white can be able to respond to the community. I hope that that answers you.
It gives me, it helps me, Chair, yeah. And then, so I just write to you as the chairperson, and from there I'll get the feedback from the department through you back to me.
Yeah.
Or is it directly to me?
Let the procedural officer add.
Members, in terms of the POPI Act, the beneficiary has to provide the committee or yourselves permission to be able to utilize their personal details so that this matter can be given to the department to be investigated, because their personal information has to be used in this regard. And for the committee to adhere to the POPI Act's conditions, we need to ensure that we follow those processes. So to just raise the issue, we can't do that without the actual person saying, maybe giving something in writing to say they're allowing you to take this matter forward on their behalf, and then and that the department can investigate this particular issue, and then the department can utilize their details to look up this matter and then to respond to it. I hope that suffices.
Member Smith, are you covered, sir?
Chair, I'm covered, and I see that the response from the procedural officer was more on the issue of Member Maran in particular. Mine is more on the, it's actually on a function of the department that I would want to raise the issue, Chair. So I'm not sure if I should mention it now or just write to you. But it's not on behalf of a beneficiary or particular person. You know,
okay. If it's general, you can raise it. But if it's a particular issue about a person, my advice is what we've been saying is a right way to deal with it.
Okay, Chair, thank you. Let me quickly just mention that mine would be that because there's a lot of tempering and to the extent where there's some fraudulent activities with the housing waiting list in terms of when there's a project and it gets to the end and houses needs now to be handed over to the beneficiaries. You find in certain instances waiting lists or lists are being changed. People get letters from the department or the municipality, and when they come there afterwards, their names disappeared and blah blah blah. This authenticity of the waiting list and who is responsible for that, and to the extent where one suspects there's even some tempering with the list between councillors at the local level and the provincial department. And I'm raising this as an allegation. So how do we as a committee ensure that we have a resolution that gives effect to the authentic lists that needs to be worked on? Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. In my closing, I mentioned the issue of the online registration that we are going to go to try and check with the municipality, to work with the municipalities in checking their database, if it's up to date, vetting it to check if this 600,000, even though we are building houses in the province, we just can't seem to be reducing the number. So I think what will work, and I think the department, when they talk to us, I wonder if it's this term or last term, I think it's this term, when they talked about the online registration will never have a loophole of corruption. The problem that is there now is the manual of writing or filling in the forms of creating the list. Much as it's on the computer, but there's somebody that is feeding it in the computer, but the online registration is central. So that will be able to control so that You don't get Nomfundo jumping the queue to receive the house while Shumis has been there for more than 10 years. So that is one thing that we have to emphasize to the municipalities, that it's important that they do that. That will, I think from my side, I feel it will cut that problems of the allegation of the corruptions that are happening within the municipalities when coming to beneficiaries of the houses.
Chair, I totally agree with you, and that is probably going to solve 90% of the challenges that is there. However, I think there's specific zooming in must be done on where there's current projects, because you find that municipalities have a waiting list, but there's not really a project there, you know. So that is one thing. To me, the other one is where there's projects and people are actually about to receive houses in 12 months' time or 6 months' time. You just find funny things happening with the list, the current list that is there. So my concern is more based on where there's projects in municipalities, other than where there's no projects. But thank you, Chair.
Okay. I think we will put in on our program to engage with the department, because to see if that cases can be looked at, or those allegations of different municipalities, because it cannot be it's every municipality, or if it's every municipality also, we will have to zoom on it, that there are people that receive the houses, but they have never been on a beneficiary list for them to be occupying that houses. But the tricky part of it, why I'm saying maybe it will be better if we engage with the department. The title deed, when it comes, if the house was supposed to be Matlodi, the title deed is going to come with Matlodi, because the subsidy is attached to the title deed. It won't be Smith, even though the occupation was given to Smith. So those are the challenges that maybe Minister could have also indicated, that trying to fight the issue of the title deed logback is difficult, because sometimes you'll find that a Matlodi is normal, and instead of next on the line receiving the house, then it's get to be given to a girlfriend or to a sister. Title deeds, they are going to talk a different language, but how do we check the beneficiaries using the title deeds? That's a difficult one that we have to sit with the department. How do we use the title deeds beneficiaries as the sample checking of the end users are the rightfully owners or rightfully beneficiaries of the housing projects? So that is one thing that we have to engage with the department to say, how do we get to be innovative enough to try to deal with that correctly? So, Member Maran?
Thanks, Chair. This issue of the Poppy Act. So this old lady must now write a letter. She's almost 70 years old. She must write a letter giving me or anyone who she is require assistance from to do it on her behalf. I mean, look at your councillors basically who are closer to the ground. If a person comes out of work and wants to go to the councillor to complain about the issue and to look into this matter, the response now by the councillor will be, put it in writing. You are basically you're discouraging this person. It's the same, for instance, when a person, for instance, walk 5 kilometers to the police station to lay a complaint, and the police tell him, please come tomorrow. That person will never come tomorrow. It's the same now. People won't be able to do their work. Just on the issue of corruption and so on, and it's a big issue. I, for instance, know about a case where two persons were married, and they then applied, put their names on the housing list. Later on, they divorced, and there's this project. They're supposed to get a house. and then the male person goes and say, I'm not married to this woman anymore, so it should be my house. Yeah, I got 2 kids. The mother of the kids is his divorced wife. I got 2 kids, and they register these 2 kids with him. When she goes and use that same kids, because the kids are staying at home, she was informed, but no, these kids are already used by someone else. They are not staying with you, which is a lie. On top of that, Chairperson, that person for the last 10 years is owing a salary of more than 10,000 rand. Brought it under the attention of the municipality. That case is never resolved. I'm just giving you a picture of what's happening. Chair, mine was basically similar to what the Honorable Andrikas raised when it comes to resolutions. I wanted to put forward basically a resolution that says, for instance, that in terms of delivery, a period from 2014 till now, how much houses has been delivered, whether it's, for instance, your FLISP or your credit link or posing how much. But the resolution proposed by the Honorable van der Westhuizen is similar, to say that can us give a detailed breakdown over the last 3 years of houses that's been delivered. But on top of that, and I also agree with that, is so that we can compare it with the number of title deeds that's been issued over the last 3 years. And to see, for instance, if that two match. Have we, for instance, say, gave title deeds for 2,000 people over the last 3 years, compared to the 16,000 that we have built over the last 3 years. And we take it from what the minister have said, that this is the thing that we will never want, on the issue of title deeds, so that we just can make that comparison. Do we keep track with the issue of title deeds compared to the houses that we deliver on an annual basis, and whether that gap is widening on an annual basis? More houses people without, in the slow pace that we're dealing with. I'm fully in agreement with that. Chair, when we visited, and I think it was Bito, was it Bito? There, and we were told, for instance, there of these alternative building models, Chairperson. And I remember, for instance, that's one of the reasons why the contractor at Transax packed up his stuff and left, because he could not keep up with this new. And therefore I fully agree with you that we should visit some of these projects, including Transax, just to see basically, because there's a person in Zwelithemba, and he's every day on Facebook saying, for instance, that the contractor have packed up the stuff because the quality of the houses was of a poor condition, blah, 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 blah. And he's also yesterday put something on Facebook saying that the same now is happening to the second contractor that's been on site. The quality is very, very poor. But let's go and see for ourselves and then take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable members. So just to recap for Shumizi to get clarity, what Member Maran was saying already, we said it. We covered you on the resolutions that we set between Member Van der Westhuizen, Member Smith, and Member Maseko. You are covered.
Me?
Yeah.
Look, Chair, as I've said, I'm happy with the 3-year period that's been requested by the Honourable Van. Although mine was supposed to be a longer period, but I'm happy with the 3 years. And it basically covers both parts, where I wanted to ask to get a detailed report in terms of houses delivered. The Honourable Andrikas took it further and say, also give us the title deeds one so that we can compare. So anyway, we will get that information. So I'm covered in terms of that. I'm grateful.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I did add the costs attached to the title deeds, because if the national stopped that grant and then the province did, we want to see what is the cost or pay a title deed to the beneficiaries. So I did add on that one. Don't be surprised when you see it. Member America, is that a legacy hand or?
No, Chair.
Okay, go on.
No, I think that the first thing I wanted to say was that I'm deeply troubled by what Honourable Moran shared with the committee with regard to the matter in Witzenberg, and I want to echo your sentiments and that of the procedural officer that he can go to the beneficiary and ask for permission to take the matter up on her behalf, and then follow the process. And I hope that that matter can be addressed as speedily as possible, because if it is true, it is completely unacceptable. Secondly, with regard to Honourable Smith's concern with regard to the beneficiary list, I would then suggest that we could ask the department for a reconciliation of the beneficiary list and those people who received occupancy of properties perhaps over the last 3 years where projects were completed, and then we can see whether there's any discrepancies in terms of the beneficiary list and the occupants of the house. And then lastly, and I think that you have touched on it also, that a while ago, and we visited Bito, and we went to the airport in particular, where we witnessed a enormous amount of alternate building materials that were just laying there, and the cost that we incurred with that project was quite substantial. And we have sort of committed ourselves that we will go back and go check up on it, but due to COVID and other restrictions, we were unable to do so. And perhaps, I don't know how we can deal with that matter in this next year. Thank you, Chair.
That's the truth, member. It's still on the our parliamentary program. We were supposed to go there before the end of the year, but COVID stopped us going. It's one of the things that we are going to speed up to attend to immediately, so that we can have we can close up that issue within our program. It's one of the things that are outstanding. On the issue of the database, the last time we requested the department to try and do a workshop with the municipalities, of which they did. There was an issue of when we go to the municipalities and say, how do you come up with your database and the beneficiaries, the beneficiary list, when the project comes? They will say, no, it's the province. The province said, no, we don't know people in your municipalities. You are the one who are responsible. That gives us the names too. So there's been this from that side to that side all the time, that I think it's high time that we say, like I said before, that municipalities, since you say it's province, then province brings in this technology, use it. Then is then that you can say the province is the one that is responsible, because it's the one that brought in that technology for you to register on the central database. And then it will cut a lot of things. So that, members, is going to be our responsibility for the municipalities to have a buy-in. It's going to be difficult because of this allegation of the corruption. Might be there's a reality to it, so you'll get the municipalities that are not interested in doing that for one reason or another. So I'm going to wish that you indulge me throughout the year that if there's one thing that we champion is to get all municipalities using that technology for their beneficiary database. Is then that we can get the number, the exact number of the beneficiaries, because it also breaks it down to say this one qualifies for which program of the housing within the province. So it's a brilliant thing to have, and to make sure that the municipalities, they use that system. They use that system all the time. Legacy hand, Member Smith.
Chair, yes, I happen to notice we came back to this point of the database. Now I'm happy with the direction of Member America in terms of perhaps asking the department to reconcile what the list that was previously submitted for the project and the actual handover list. That will help a lot. And also to say that, Chair, as much as we as a committee going to focus on this technology for the future, we have an oversight responsibility to ensure that actually whatever this department spend in terms of giving on a housing project, that the actual person who made it possible to be a project receives the house, you know, and that is our core thing. And if there's any possibility of manipulation in that order, because I know of an instance where a person who's been out of a municipal area for over 30 years, not staying there, stayed in Cape Town, was called back to say, look, you got a house after 30, 40 years. And the person was really not expecting that. You know, so that the current system is a problem, and we need as a committee to attend to some of these issues. Maybe a forensic investigation or auditing must be done of the current projects in municipalities. I don't know. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I think, Honorable Members, we have captured every resolution, and we have also highlighted the issues that we'll use to populate our program for this financial year. So some of the things won't be there, but it will be the engagement with the municipality on the issues that you have raised. I think the transcript is there, Shemis. Our procedural officer will listen to that as we sit down to populate, and then our program will bring it to you so that you can have a look and check if all the issues that you want us to engage with the department are there, and all, including the oversight where we have to go. So I think that will be in order. Is there any other thing, members, that you think we have to talk about?
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. With that, I don't see any hands. So thank you very much, honorable members, for the interrogation of the annual report for human settlements, and also appreciating your contribution and the passion you show. Is the one of the unappreciated services, because the more you give, the more you create the demand in housing. So we just have to try and do as much as we can to hold the department accountable to out there.
Chair, just the last thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've received, Chair, the news that one of the DA councillors, Ward Councillor Niels Lottering in Woolsley Ward 2, have passed on this morning. Just for us to send condolences to his family. Thanks.
Sorry to hear that. And then who's councillor?
Pardon?
You say there's a councillor that passed on this morning.
Yes, it's the Ward Councillor of Ward 2 in Woolsley. It's a DA councillor, one of your councillors that have passed on. I'm not sure who is the constituency from that side, but just for us maybe to send condolences to his family. Thanks.
Our condolences to the family and the loved ones, and to you also, honorable member. It's not bad news. It's sad news to hear that happening. So really making sure
And also Chairperson Claude Schröder. I think Claude is familiar to you guys. Claude Schröder was Director Community Services in the Cape Winelands District Municipality for a long time. I've also passed on this morning, Chair. Thanks. Claude Schröder.
May his soul rest in peace also. That's the sad news, man. That's sad news. Just our hearts and our prayers are with their loved ones and their families. Thanks to bring that into our attention. Members, with that being said, with the sad news that we get, I think I'm going to thank each and every one. Shumis, thank you. Thank you very much for all your assistance. The IT, thanks, and members, thanks for engaging. Johan, thanks for being with us today. With that being said, the meeting is adjourned. Others will meet in the scope at 2 o'clock.
Thank you.